So I tracked all of my IPL retreat wagers.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, no, I did. I tracked all of my IPL retreat wagers. I made 9 wagers at the IPL retreat on SXBet. I went 5 wins, 3 losses, 1 void, and I profited $104.70.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. All right, hello and welcome to another episode of Behind the Lines, the only podcast purifying the sports betting industry. Remember to like, download, subscribe, follow us on all the socials at inplayLIVE. I'm your host, Shane Mercer. That guy over there, the founder of inplayLIVE, Andrew Pace. inplayLIVE is a community of like-minded sports bettors dedicated to long-term success. And Pace, we kind of celebrated that success over the weekend, a little bit last week, with the 4th annual IPL retreat. We'll get to more of that in a moment because there's a couple of stories I want to get to first, but I just got to say it was an awesome event. A big thank you to you, Raj, Sabrina, everybody at inplayLIVE who puts it on. It's a ton of work, but man, it is such an awesome opportunity to connect with other members of the community, enjoy some laughs, some drinks, some food, and play some sports, which I have to admit I am still recovering from. It took a serious toll on my body.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that bet on sports played sports at one point in their life.
Yeah.
And when you try to dial the clock back a little bit, it can, you feel it. It's actually really funny too, Shane. So I always like I do the whole Apple Watch thing, right? Where you're tracking your steps and all that kind of stuff. So let me see if I can bring up the graph here. So this was the Friday, which is 21,000 steps.
Sounds about right.
Which is the softball tournament,
yep.
And also like dancing at Mansion.
Yeah.
Right. And then this is Saturday streaming afterwards. Literally 10% of the steps taken. But yeah, I mean, it was a few big days of sports and friends and learning and, drinks and good food and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome to have everyone out.
Yeah, it was a great time, but absolutely still feeling the effects of that, especially the softball, man. I didn't expect, like we played basketball the day before on the Thursday. And, whenever I play ball for a couple of hours, I always feel it through my body. And I sort of had that normal post-basketball feeling where it's like, yes, I'm sore on my lower back. My legs are sore, my shoulders, my whole body's sore for like, a good 24-hour period or so. But like, here we are. It's almost like 3 days later since softball, and I'm still feeling the softball, which I'm kind of surprised by. Yeah,
so I think like if you don't play softball, and people always say like baseball is not like a real exercise or whatever, there's a lot of like resting and then a lot of sprinting.
Yeah.
So you might not, and also, I mean, we're not. If you play baseball, you're supposed to be throwing balls in between every inning to keep your arm warm. All of a sudden, you might not have gotten a ball for an hour, and then you got to rifle one into someone there. So. Yeah, you definitely feel it. You definitely feel it. And I think, Shane, you relative to some of the other people that we saw playing there, I think you're in better shape than a lot of people that were out playing. So, I think Rick said his goal was to not get injured this year. And it was like my first at bat. And I hit the ball directly back at the poor guy, just fucking smoked him at pitching there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's multiple people that are in your shoes or worse.
Oh man, there has to be. I hope I'm not the only one feeling this way, because like you said there, I feel like I'm not out of shape. But man, after that, I was like, dude, I guess I got to work harder on a regular basis to be ready to play these things.
Yeah. I mean, like the people from last year practiced cornhole and joined leagues for this year. There's only 2 of them that did that, but 2 people did that, right? So like people do take it seriously, and they want to perform when they come to the event. And then you get that whole mixed bag of people that haven't moved in a year, right? So I'll put myself somewhere in between.
All right. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about the event in a little bit, but first here, Pace, I want to get to some news, because I love to get to get to news. I like to get my vegetables out of the way before I eat the main course, so to speak. Before I get into the meat and potatoes, I like to chew on the vegetables a bit. And we do have some really interesting news here. And there's two studies that I want to look at, and I don't want to look at them in isolation. I want to look at them together because I think that there's a really interesting contrast going on here. So we'll start with this first one. And, I heard some feedback from people at the retreat that sometimes maybe, I'm a little too serious on the podcast and I talk about serious things here, but I like that I do that in some ways, because there is a serious side to this. And when we talk about sports betting and we're covering the sports betting news, there is a real serious element to it, and we're seeing it play out. And so this latest study, and this came from NBC News, they were reporting on the study. But their headline, their big takeaway from it was sports gambling takes a toll on Americans' checkbooks, research shows. So that's this study here. It's actually two studies quantifying the effect of legalized sports betting on investments and savings. So two separate papers released this month. Academics found that households in states where gambling was legalized saw significantly reduced savings, as well as lower investments in assets like stocks. States that legalized sports betting saw their residents' credit scores decrease, bankruptcies increased. The authors estimate total monthly wagers across all states in America where betting is legalized. They saw wagers have climbed on average from 1.1 billion per month in 2019 to 14 billion in January 2024. So it's a pretty massive increase in the amount of wagers, and with that, we're seeing credit scores fall, bankruptcies increase, people taking money out of their savings and out of their stock portfolios to place wagers. Here on the Canadian side of the border, the same research was analyzed by a guy named Preet Banerjee, who's a financial advisor. He's a really well-known financial advisor, especially in Canadian media. He's quoted often in the various papers and on TV news shows and that kind of thing. He authored an op-ed in the Globe and Mail. The title of his op-ed, "The Expansion of Sports Gambling Means Canadians Will Be Betting Away Their Shot at Building Wealth." So before I get to the next one, Pace, any thoughts, any reactions to this study?
Yeah, tons. I mean, the first would be like, that's kind of why we exist, right? Because people are going to do this and they're going to do it anyway. That's certainly one angle that you can kind of fall back on, like that it's happening and it's legalized and so give people the tools to actually hopefully lose less or even win some money, and the education surrounding that. It's precisely why inplayLIVE has sliced off, a tiny little piece of the betting pie in the grand scheme of the sports bettors that are out there, because there is a better or more effective way to do things than, this lost savings and losing money and all that kind of thing. So that would be the first thing I'd say. The second thing is like the rationale for legalizing betting, is one where you go, hey, $400 billion was wagered in 2018 in the United States illegally. Why don't we just legalize this? It's happening anyway, right? Kind of what I just said, but from the standpoint of like, now we're going to get tax and now we're going to have new revenue streams and all that kind of stuff. So that isn't what happened, because those offshore sites that people were betting $400 billion on illegally, right? Mm-hmm. None of them are legalized. Yeah. So they introduced all these new companies emerged, right? Like DraftKings didn't exist, as a sports betting company. FanDuel didn't exist as a sports betting company. The list goes on and on there. ESPN Bet, Fanatics, yep. Sports Illustrated, right? So all these major companies decided to say, hey, we want a piece of the pie. And obviously that leads to a lot of the things we've talked about on the podcast, the celebrity endorsements and the celebrities getting involved and the advertising being rammed down our faces and the free bets and the bonuses and how it all works to get you looped in. And the long story short of it is that you're going to have a small percentage of people that are able to do it successfully. Those sportsbooks are going to continue to work to get rid of those players off of their sites. And you're left with these losing players. And when you're left with these losing players, I mean, you think it's going to have a positive impact on their finances? Like, so this is where the responsible gaming thing really comes in. And like, I actually put myself in my shoes of like my early days of betting where, you know, separately of betting, you know, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. And if rent's coming out of my account, there might be $1 left over where you're waiting to Friday, or you're waiting to go get some tips, bartending, or whatever the case may be that night to be able to even pay for something. Right. But, you know, maybe it's payday and you're like, okay, I can deposit. Right. And you get excited. Like, I get to make my parlay.
Yeah.
NFL Sunday. Let's fucking go. Right. It's awesome. Right. And that's the thing. It is entertaining. And, you know, your parlay loses and you still want that thrill. You still want that rush. So maybe your budget was $50 that week. And before you know it, you might be placing a $50 bet pretty quickly again. And then, you know, when that one loses, you can start to make some pretty poor decisions, like as you alluded to, like no savings or bad credit, meaning that you're spending your debt and not paying it back, or you're spending your access to money and not paying it back. I mean, it's no surprise at all, and it's kind of the bed that was made. And it's tricky because these are consenting adults that are engaging in the behavior that's causing the problem, right? So I think awareness and education are so huge. They're so huge. And I'll give you a really good example. I've been playing a lot of pickleball, right? And I go to the same courts pretty much every time that I go and play. Sorry, tennis fans that hate the whole pickleball craze. But for me, with the torn meniscus and all the things you just alluded to about your ability to move at the event, when I can play doubles pickleball and not need to worry too much about mobility, and actually I get an amazing exercise from it. It gets my competitive juices flowing. I think it's just a tremendous sport. So I've kind of started to develop myself a little bit as like an okay player. And, you know, the people at the court that I go to, they start to get to know me. And, you know, when you're the only guy that's 37 in a pickleball court full of people that have retired Monday at, you know, 12 o'clock, because, you know, the betting schedule tends to be the opposite.
Right. They're wondering what the hell are you doing there?
Yeah. People ask you what you do for a living and all that kind of stuff. So, of course, you know, this is going back to the Euro and things like that. You know, people know that I bet on sports, and people that bet on sports start coming up to me, you know, can't believe England lost. Like, oh my God, I lost a bunch of money, you know. Like, oh yeah, you know, that's, you're never going to lose lose every bet. It's always the way it goes, kind of thing. And then, you know, they start prodding, asking questions, things like that. So Shane, you'll recognize maybe from the stream yesterday, there's a guy on Zoom who was trying hard. He's the guy I play pickleball with every day, retiree. He's just absolutely loving it. And this is a guy that has a whole bunch of betting experience. He's got bookies, he's got multiple sites, and he loses a bunch of money, but he loves it. And he's like, holy shit, I won money this weekend. Like, he messaged me, invited me over for dinner. He's like, I want to keep learning more. Like, what you're doing is unbelievable, right? And like, this isn't about inplayLIVE, but it's about education and awareness.
Yeah.
Where you take a bettor that's potentially falling into some sort of the category that you're referencing of, let's just say, having less money. And they go, and I don't want to reference encouraging real problem gamblers. But, you know, they come into an environment where they go, wow, like, you know, I wagered more and I lost less and even won money. That's where that education and awareness can just be such a game changer for you, because it causes you to look at things differently. Yeah, but I mean, it's a shame. This stuff's not going anywhere.
No. It's definitely not going anywhere. And I think you touched on a lot of things there. I think you talk about the retiree who, it sounds like he probably has a fair amount of money to, you know, disposable income and that kind of thing. You know, perhaps he had a great career and now he's just in a position where he can do that kind of thing, right? But you also referenced yourself as a younger person before inplayLIVE, sort of before you were a professional sports bettor and kind of living paycheck to paycheck. And, you know, I think that might be the reality for a lot of people out there, a lot of people that are covered in this study, right, in North America, that are, you know, they live a good North American lifestyle, but perhaps they feel like they're struggling, right? So what I mean by that is they have a roof over their head. They have food in the fridge. They have running water that's potable water, clean drinking water. They have electricity. And they have all of these sort of modern North American amenities, but at the same time, they're living paycheck to paycheck, right? And it's still a struggle to cover the rent, still a struggle to cover their bills, perhaps pay for their family. They've got kids, that kind of thing. And it's a grind for them. And when Sunday rolls around and it's NFL Sunday, they sit on their couch and they've got their phone and they feel like they know what's going to happen today, right? And they feel confident, making that 10-game parlay and throwing their $50 out there because they have this confidence that from their couch, they've been following the league and they know more than the books, right? Or that they have some kind of edge that exists in their head. And I think we've all been there, right? I think at some point we're all that guy, especially, people here in our audience, mostly North America. And so I want to take that study and that person and contrast it with this study that's come out of Zimbabwe that I think is absolutely fascinating here. So sports betting is on the rise in many African countries. And most of them are betting on soccer. Okay. And so this, if anybody's interested, this article is in a publication called The Conversation. It's high journalistic integrity mixed in with a lot of academia. So they have a lot of academics that will come here, publish basic news articles promoting studies and stuff like that they've come across or written themselves. And that's the case here, where the study authors of a very academic study came on here to publish an article about their study. So that, people can go take a look at the study if they want to read the more academic form of it, or they can just read the article and get a sense of it. So I encourage anybody out there who wants to dig into it to go have a look. But here's what they looked at. So in many African nations, young people wait for long periods of time after completing high school and post-secondary education before they can find stable employment. That's because, the economies are less developed. They're poorer nations. The jobs aren't there, right? So they go to post-secondary education, they graduate, and they have to wait before they can get a job to earn a reliable income, before they can get that 9-to-5 job, right? That many of us here in North America are trying to escape. That's what they're waiting for and hoping for to be able to get. So it takes them a long time to acquire assets, to start a family, to fully transition to adulthood. And so they've actually termed this period of life for young African men specifically, and they call it waithood. Okay, so you go from, childhood or adolescence, and you don't quite get to adulthood, you're in waithood. And waithood is anywhere from 18 to 38 years old. Whoa. Okay. Yeah. Think about that, right? Pace, like you and I are kind of on the upper echelons. Imagine that you hadn't started your career till now, right? So think about that, right? Putting yourself in their shoes. So during this time of waithood, these young African men find ways to hustle, right? And that's how they refer to it, just hustling. And it's whatever they can do to make money. Right? For some, it's toiling in fields, farming, that kind of thing, creating and selling music. Think like, bootleg CDs and that whole era. And now it's probably like on a USB, or something like that. Whatever small jobs they can find. It could just even be working at any kind of local business, doing any kind of odds and ends, handyman stuff, whatever they can find. That, and many of these people have gone to school for something, that might be more professional. And so this study examined how young men in urban Zimbabwe used soccer betting to mitigate the effects of unemployment and to earn an income. So they looked at these guys, these young people in Zimbabwe, and what they found is that so many of them, they dig into as much information as they possibly can. So we're talking stats, news, video highlights, social media, expert analysis, predictions. They work together in groups using WhatsApp for information sharing. They get their hands on whatever technology they can get. So it could just be a tablet, mobile phone, whatever it is. They get access to internet in any way they possibly can to tap in, get this information, and then to work together as a group to share the information. And guess what they do with their profits? Face, you'll love this. They reinvest it into their operations to upgrade their tech and improve what they're doing. So they found that in addition to being a source of income during this time, right, in this waithood, these guys are actually generating profits. They're turning an income. But at the same time, too, they're also improving their digital skills, improving their technological skills. They're learning, how to use all these devices, how to do deep research on the internet. And on top of that, the networking and collaboration skills. All of this is stuff that they might not have developed in school, and it helps them be job market ready for when waithood is over. So I just think it's a really sort of fascinating take on what sports betting's doing in a third world country like that.
Yeah, you know what? I don't think that's what sports betting's doing. I would look at it the other way. I would think of it as like what a group of people
are doing,
do when they don't have the traditional resources that maybe we would be accustomed to progress in a world where technology is now obviously available, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you think about some third world countries, technology isn't necessarily readily available, and their lives are going to be completely different than obviously anything that we're going to be used to. But these guys are finding access to technology, and then they're figuring out ways to survive. And sports betting is just a vehicle for how they're able to sort of invest, right? It's really, really cool. And then going back to your what you were bringing up about, paycheck to paycheck and rent and that kind of thing. You might have someone who has whether it's their last $50, their last $100, their last $500. Warren Buffett says compound interest is like the eighth wonder of the world. So you take that, whether it's the 50, the 100, the 500, it's the great equalizer when you save and invest. You can make $40,000 a year or $400,000 a year. I've worked with both categories of people in my previous career, where the 400,000 is broke and the 40,000 is well on their way towards retirement because of the decisions that they make. So if you take that same principle of investing and you actually apply it to sports betting, people don't want this boring like $50 bet or $50 bankroll with $1 bets where your interest or your growth at the end of the day might be $1. It might be 50 cents. But when you compound it over time, how impactful that can be. It's like hitting singles or taking a hit by pitch versus trying to hit a home run. Where the percentage of singles is way higher and the home run is extremely unlikely, and which will end up finishing first down the road. And it sounds like this whole Zimbabwe thing is like embodying that big time, because not only are they turning a profit, they're also reinvesting it so that they can become better and that they can, continue to see returns on the same level or even higher going forward. It's just it's really cool. Like and it's awesome to hear about. It's funny because I was had a conversation with Lace yesterday about university when we were getting that step count up from Saturday after the stream. Leave a live stream on Sunday, and it's like I'm look at my steps. I'm like 2,000 steps. I'm like, I gotta move my fucking body. I can barely move it from the event, but I gotta move my fucking body. And we were talking about back to school because back to school is right around the corner here.
Yeah.
And I just had like a flashback on my university experience, and I think about this like waithood concept and what I was doing when I finished high school. And I was working 2 jobs, and my university experience was driving sometimes 2 hours in the morning in traffic to get to school, to then pay for school. And as a really, really good high school student, I was fortunate enough to have a really amazing scholarship to university, but the scholarship required a certain GPA in order to keep it. And I remember the highest grade in one of my classes was 79%. The highest, not my grade, the highest in the whole class of like 600 people.
That's a tough class.
And I remember I got a paper and they gave it back and they gave me a C. And I was like, look, this is the scholarship that I have. I am trying to figure out how I can get to this level so that I can keep my scholarship. And you are telling me that of these 600 people, not one of them hit the level that I need to attain to keep my scholarship. So I said, I need to know how I can improve this and what I can do to get my grade up. And the professor literally looked at me and said, you can't. On top of that, I went to, these focus groups or these TA rooms or whatever the hell it was, like after the class when you needed help with a problem or whatever the case. And there'd be, again, 600 people in the class. and I'd go wait in line for 45 minutes to get 1 minute of someone's time, and then they send you packing to work with the next student. And eventually I hit a point with this whole system where I was like, this fucking sucks. I had no culture at my school. I'm driving 1 to 2 hours to get there, then walking 15 minutes in the pouring rain to get to my class, all to be told that the grades that I need to attain to keep my scholarship aren't impossible, but with certain professors are near impossible to attain. And I hit the point where I'm like, I am no longer choosing to do this. Like, this is not fun. This is not what I want to be doing. Whereas these people in this waithood, they are going, hey, these are like, I have to figure this out for myself. I'm not in some system with this 9 to 5 or some system with this university where, you know, I'm sort of subject to everything it is that they require. Right? Like, I'm not even getting into the fact that like a business degree requires 60 credits that are completely unrelated to business, where you go learn about like why rain falls in British Columbia. It has nothing to do with your business career. Right? So like, I love it. I think it's phenomenal. I think like our education system and everything that we do isn't wrong, but I think there's so much area for improvement. And you put this group of people together that now just has the keys to doing what they want to do. They obviously, I'm just going to assume they love soccer. Like, I have to make that assumption.
Yeah, to some
They
extent.
probably really love the sport. They love following it. They're getting access to unique and special data and information, and they're investing their funds with something that they care about to return a profit. And then again, like I brought up inplayLIVE for the first article, I'll bring it up to this one. That's what we're doing at inplayLIVE, right? We love sports. We're following it in. We're enjoying the games that we would likely be watching anyways. We carve out the times for the sports that we each like more. So Shane, you might spend a little bit more time on women's hoops than I do, right? Because
Certainly
you
do.
actually really enjoy betting on them and learning about them and all that kind of stuff. Whereas like I might spend a little bit less time on college basketball than a different member, right? Whereas I might be more focused on hockey or football because that's what I like more, right? And this is this sort of symbiosis of where this passion, learning, and play like all intersect, and then you find joy in a productive and healthy way that can be beneficial for you. And it is niche, but it exists in the world of sports betting.
It totally exists. And I think one of the big things that I wanted to highlight in between these two sort of, you know, people, right? This Zimbabwean, you know, living in waithood, and the North American sports bettor that is pulling money from his financial portfolio and maybe going, you know, using credit to place their $50 or $100 parlay on a Sunday before kickoff, is, you know, there's just, it's such a contrasting mindset and attitude and an overall perception of life that I think is just you know, it's such a stark difference there, right? Where you have this person, they might be, you know, in North America, they might be struggling a little bit to meet all their bills, but they have a life that is, you know, in relative security where, you know, again, roof over their head, food, you know, utilities, all those things, where some of these people in Zimbabwe don't have any of that. And yet they're finding a way. They're finding a way to make it happen. And I think the most important thing here is that North American bettor is sitting on his couch on his phone alone making that parlay. And these guys are collaborating, working together as a team to try and improve all of their lives together. And I think that's the big difference there. Anyway, I
actually have a little piece of advice there, Shane, as we head into football season.
Yeah.
Because when this airs, college football starts tomorrow. But let's just pretend it's college football or it's the NFL. But like a really good example, right? Georgia's playing Clemson this weekend. That's kind of like the feature big time matchup of the college football slate coming up, right? And I think like it would be really easy to say Georgia's not losing that game. Right. They're 13.5 pregame favorites. That would be a very agreeable statement. And I would say there's a chance they could lose, but they're probably not going to lose that game. But what happens with the recreational sports bettor that is in this debt and, you know, this bad credit score category is they do the reverse of what they should be doing from the standpoint of building their wagers, even if it is a parlay. And that is, they're looking at the books and the lines and making their decisions based on that, as opposed to actually using information and data to then build the lines. And I'll give you a really good example of what your typical recreational parlay builder will do from a betting standpoint. And I'll be honest with you, I fall guilty to this kind of stuff. And the reason why I bet live is because now I see it and I know what's happening because that player is on the field or that team is doing said thing that I'm witnessing.
Doing what they were expected to do.
Right. So like, let's just say it's, the Lions are playing who would be considered a really bad team, the Patriots. So let's say the Lions are playing the Patriots and you're like, oh, there's no way the Lions are losing. And you turn on the game and Jared Goff was never starting. Like he's not starting. And there's some backup quarterback in that you've never seen before. And you looked at the line and maybe they were like a pick 'em or maybe they were a small favorite and you thought they should have been like a big favorite. But you looked at the line first, you made your bet, and then you found out after. I can't tell you how many times I would do that, 13 years ago, where I'm just, again, the same person. I got $50 to go spend, deposit, and the first thing is that $50 lands in my account is I start clicking buttons. And I'm like, why? What? The Vikings? What? The Vikings are underdogs? Oh my God. Like, they're playing the Bucks. Like, this is a great opportunity. And then you flick on the screen and like, maybe it's their star running back, maybe it's their quarterback, whatever it is, he's not playing. Could be the same with totals with the weather. Oh my God, the Bengals can't score 32 points in this game, and then you flick on they're playing in Cleveland and there's like 10 feet of snow on, right? So information is what you need to have even a fighting chance at breaking even, let alone making money.
Yeah.
So, if you are doing this recreational entertainment approach, the last thing I'm going to do is be like, stop doing that, because it is fun and I still do some of it, but go into it with some sort of a theory, some sort of a plan, some sort of knowledge that you are now trying to prove correct. And again, proving correct doesn't mean that game won. Proving correct means that you were on the side of value regardless of the outcome that occurred.
Right, that you had some kind of edge that you can point to and say, I made a good wager here after the fact, regardless of the outcome. Well, Pace, I think this is a great opportunity to talk a little bit about the retreat and the community that you've built, because that's what we're kind of getting at here, is that, in a lot of ways that information sharing and gaining, comes from working with other people, trying to do something, trying to win at this in a silo all on your own is very, very difficult. And most of the even pro sports bettors who do it pregame, and we'll talk a little bit more about them as we get into BetBash, but a lot of those people who are doing it pregame, they're not doing it in a silo. They're doing it with teams of people. And we've had them on and they've explained how they work with people and how they, the amount of networking that they do and connections they make and how important that is for their success. And it's no different here in IPL. And that's why I want to talk a little bit about the retreat, because, I came last year. It was a fantastic time last year. And I met some people I had already been working with. I had met them in person, and it was a great chance to connect with them face to face. And I met some people that I hadn't worked with in the past that I did over the past year. And then again this year coming, there were some people that I had a chance to meet with face to face that I didn't meet last year, but I had been working with them a little bit over the course of the year this time around, and to sort of make those connections in person and then have that exchange of knowledge, sharing information, sharing data, sharing tips, tracking sheets, and data accumulation. There was just so much of that going on at the retreat where people are like, hey, let me show you my spreadsheet. And, it's
no way.
Oh, yeah. And it sounds a little like, maybe nerdy in that sense, but like, that's so fucking valuable, man. Like it is incredible opportunity to just soak up knowledge, build connections with people people. And now I'm just coming back. And I was saying this to my wife, Zoe, just yesterday, that, I think one of the most valuable things, like, look, I loved playing sports with you and with everybody else out there, right? Even though I'm sore as shit right now. I had a blast doing that. And I had an awesome time at the nightclub, even though I almost missed my flight because of it. All of that was really fun. But I think the most valuable thing I'm probably coming back with is some of the relationships I've built, and how, I'll be able to work with some of these people in this upcoming sports season as we get ready to kick off the NFL season, and with the NBA and the NHL right on the tail of that. I think that that's probably by far the most valuable thing I got out of the retreat. And so, again, I just wanted to say thank you for that. But also, we want to know a little bit more about, how you created the retreat, why you built it up, where it's come, and where you see it going.
Yeah, I actually just have to touch on something that you said there, because there's a member that was at the retreat that is an annual member of obviously Members in Pro, and he hasn't been on a stream in like a year, literally, and he views inplayLIVE as like a service that helps him with all the things that you just said, not actually the live streams. So I'm not trying to say that that's the value of inplayLIVE, but he wants to do his own thing with a group that he has, and he values the focus groups, and he values the retreat, and that's what he pays us for. He wants to be on those focus groups where he learns from Kenny and Trampus and other people. And he wants to be at the retreat where he can network and build relationships with people. So I just think that that's cool. And I think that, again, like, you get what you make of the things that you do in your life. And for some people that means picking a lane, and that's the lane that he has picked. Right now, as for the event itself, I mean, we were just this group of people that was really having a lot of fun making money off sports. So we said, like, hey, we want to get together before the football season starts. Back in 2021. So that was the end of our first year, and COVID was still a major factor there. Kenny and Kaz made it out for that event. But they were the only two guys from the US, and it was not easy to get into Canada at that time. So they were able to come. And there was, I think about 26 people there. And then the next year it was just absolute mayhem. And I treated the event of 26 the same way I treated the next year after that. Which was essentially like, I'm just hosting a big party, and what would I do that day to like, if I was having 20 buddies over, I could get ready for it that day. And I kind of treated the next event in a similar fashion. I will tell you, it was 3 of the most difficult and stressful days of my entire life, aside from like the loss of a loved one. Like, that is the level of stress and challenge that those 3 days provided me. I hated it. It was so difficult and stressful. I was getting like an hour of sleep, like panicking, driving, picking stuff up. Like, oh my God, it was so brutal. So then the next year, which is the first year that you came, Shane, is where I feel like we really dialed in and had things a lot more organized. And then, this last event was a ton of fun. And, there's definitely a lot of sport events. Like, we played basketball, we played cornhole, we played softball. We do have a couple seminars for educational purposes and things like that. Obviously, Shane, I did encourage at the start, like, hey, make the most out of this, ask people questions, ask them how they're doing, really try to dive in to see if there's some little niche things that you can pick up on from the other professional sports bettors that are there. And even my dad, who was running the barbecue, said to me, he's like,
you did a great job, by the way.
Yeah. He said, he's like,
kept us all fed.
He asked people like, hey, how's the money? And, he asked them a bunch of questions and then said, hey, how's the money? And everyone kind of gave him a look as if to say, like, this is the money. You know what I mean? So, we have a lot of our top guys out for something like that, but definitely a lot of like-minded people coming out. Now, as far as like how it all went and where I see the future going, there's parts of it that I think that if we changed, people would be devastated. Because they just love certain elements of what it is that we do. I do think that deep down, there's probably a part of the event where if you lack athleticism, it could be a little bit frustrating for you. Now, you take a guy like Kenny, he's got good hand-eye coordination. Obviously he's not in the best shape. you know, he lives for the athletics of the event because he is organizing teams and, you know, trying to find an edge and strategizing, and he's just being the golden goose, right? And that's just the way he approaches life. But yeah, I could see that being a bit of a challenge for some people. Like the cornhole as an example, like I was talking to Hiddle and Gosu and Trampus about it when they were at my place the next day. You know, there's maybe 8 people that could win it, you know, no matter how many people come. There's about 8 guys that could win it. So like, if we continue with something like that, we're going to have to figure out a way for it to be a little bit more fun and inclusive all the way through to the top. I know the betting on it and all that is super fun, but yeah, I think that there's always room for improvement in everything that we do. So I'm always, you know, looking for feedback with inplayLIVE, with the event, with everything, to go, hey, like, let's try this, let's try that, and let's see where we land with it all. Now, having attended BetBash and then going straight into our event, you know, there's definitely takeaways where you start brainstorming. You know, you go, is this something that could be beneficial to people that are not in inplayLIVE? And how does that work? What does that look like? I don't have an answer there. Is it just for pro members, you know, the way it has been? You know, venues, everything, like the list goes on and on. So I just want it to continue to be a celebration of everything that we do, where people get to network, better themselves, have fun, let loose a little bit. And also it is to an extent inplayLIVE, you know, thanking all those people for the support, because obviously we put a lot into that. And it doesn't cost the member money to actually attend. So yeah, we put a lot into it all, and hopefully that's seen from someone like you that, you know, attends and you know, hopefully gets to enjoy it and have fun, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's seen, it's appreciated, it's very much enjoyed. Pace, we got to mention something that hasn't been mentioned yet, but that was the involvement of SXBet this year, which was, I thought, totally fucking awesome. It was incredible to be able to do that. I know a lot of other guys out there had a lot of fun with that. You know, you talk about handicapping and who can win what and that kind of thing. You're right. Like, I think before the cornhole tournament started, we all sort of put our, you know, people are talking and it's like, yeah, there's probably 3 teams here that can win this thing. And sure enough, those 3 teams all ended up in the semifinal. But to have SXBet there and create markets for us on this betting platform. If anybody out there doesn't know what SXBet is, we have an episode with their CEO and chief marketing officer, I believe, on. And it was her, Kay, who was at the event. She was there for almost the entire 3 days, creating markets for us when we wanted it, checking in on things, giving us bonuses, bonus crypto, and that sort of stuff. It was awesome to have them there doing that, and just to be able to go and place bets or create a market on something, you know, that might seem silly, but it was just so much fun. And I was going through my tracker, so I tracked all of my IPL retreat wagers.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, no, I did. I tracked all of my IPL retreat wagers. I made 9 wagers at the IPL retreat on SXBet. I went 5 wins, 3 losses, 1 void, and I profited $104.70.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun to be able to do that. Really, really cool idea. You know, it would just be like, as SXBet grows, I was just thinking about it, like, as they grow, as they become a bigger company and that kind of thing. Like, imagine they had like reps in like major cities across North America, where you're hosting a big event and you're going to have games like beer pong, like, you know, softball or basketball or cornhole or whatever, right? And you could have an SXBet show up and create markets for you and your attendees, and, you know, that would just be so cool. It would be a lot of
that's what we just had happen.
That's what we did, yeah, exactly. Which was totally awesome. It would just be, imagine anybody could hire them to do that, right? I thought that would be really, really kind of cool as a big sort of picture idea. But it was just awesome to have them there. I thought that was one of the coolest additions from last year to this year.
Yeah, and I think that website separately of the crypto takes a little bit of learning to be able to use, and then there's the hurdle of getting your money in there, which is not easy. I also think separately of that, there's a mistrust for me working with a sports book, and we don't work with them in any official capacity, but I'm just like a big fan of theirs and they're a big fan of mine. That's really the relationship, the nature of our relationship. Truly nothing more. And people at the event went from potentially not knowing how to deposit or use the site and or not wanting to because they don't want to be a part of something where the sports book is actually there with us, to people pulling me aside going, this site is unbelievable. Now I see what it is that you see. And Kenny was making markets. And the thing is, Shane, I thought this was a really funny moment at the event. So we're getting down to the wire for cornhole, and there was a lot of like plus money field bets against one of those big favorites that were offered early on. And we're getting down to the semis, and now we're in the final. And we talk shit about the sports books and the lines that they offer being like corrupt or bad or like high in vig. The final, before the bags started getting thrown, had minus 200 on one side and minus 140 on the other side. So the group of sharp bettors are all trying to trap each other into buying like a terrible line on either of the two players, which I just like, I looked at it and I just had a good laugh. It's like, you know, we talk shit about the books, and meanwhile, like, we can't offer a fair line for the games here. But yeah, it was a lot of fun using SX throughout the event. And that certainly is an area of improvement, because there were some events, like the cornhole in particular, that saw a lot of handle. And this is actually something I didn't share at the event, but I have to share with you now, Shane. So on Thursday night, we had the betting lounge where we were watching the preseason football and the CFL game while we were, having drinks and eating after the cornhole. There was a greater handle on the inplayLIVE cornhole event than the Colts preseason game on SX. There was a greater handle
That's insane.
on the heads up beer pong match of Kenny against me than the Colts preseason match.
Wow.
On SX. So we looked at that and went, holy smoke. So Kay took me aside and she was like, we just did like 10,000 in volume on your beer pong match. She's like, you guys are awesome, right? And like for me, like, yeah, like I a lot of people throughout the event thought that Kenny had offered a side of a line. And I think some people just inherently didn't take it because they didn't want to bet against Kenny. But a lot of the lines that I put up where you would see like a $2,000 option to bet the other side, almost all of them were me. Kenny was actually just getting used to it and didn't have much funds in his account, but I'm sure he will rectify that. But yeah, I think I had about 2,000 US in my SX to start the event, and then winning the cornhole, it went up to 4,000. And then I lost to Kenny at beer pong, and then I didn't necessarily play the best in softball. And I think that, and I bet all of the field goals wrong. So I took Kenny to make, took Brett to make, and it took Gurdens to miss. And I think by the time it was all said and done, I was exactly even again after winning the cornhole event. But I mean, just obviously that whole thing really is not about making money. And that was just so much fun to have that element. And once people got used to it, really understanding, like, everyone had their phone out and people were sniping lines as they'd pop up.
Oh yeah.
Of if something came in that they believed to be valuable.
Yep. I'm glad you brought up the cornhole thing where people were trying to sort of trap each other, and you had all these sharp bettors. So I mentioned, my record: 5 wins, 3 losses, 1 void. All 3 of my losses from the cornhole event. Those guys got me. I just I couldn't beat them. I thought I was getting the edge. No, they had the edge the whole time.
It sounds like I got you.
Yeah, you're probably one of them. I know you got me, and I know Orange Crush, who goes by the Discord handle Orange Crush, Kyle. He got me, I think, twice. Oh yeah. So Anyway, it was a lot of fun. That was a great aspect of it. Absolutely loved it. Great time. I want to ask you about BetBash now, because you sort of held this IPL retreat on the back of BetBash. You were there, then you had to come back, get ready for this, and we talked a little bit about it on a couple previous episodes, and we had our Survivor expert on last week, who you met at BetBash. But just before we sort of wrap up today's show, I wanted to ask you a couple questions about it, because I want to get a sense of where you kind of think inplayLIVE fits in the sports betting ecosystem in North America. And I imagine that BetBash was a real opportunity to kind of gauge that, like your first real opportunity to get a sense of where you fit in. And I want to know, like, what was the reaction from other pro sports bettors when you told them about what we do?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is I already know we fit in and have a place in the industry, just from the standpoint of like the success of our community. Like, I don't need that industry lens to know that we have a space in it. Now, with that, going to BetBash was hugely eye-opening for all the reasons that you just said, of where we fit, how we fit, what we're doing, all that kind of stuff. The first thing that I would say is that it is predominantly the old school style. And it's not only that, but it's that old school style of like some of the guys that we have had on, like Fats and Spanky, that are working with teams. It's really just all about getting information. They get information from some source or system, whether that be, someone like Adam Bjorn working with Planetech, where he sees the sharp money come in on something and then goes and finds the lines that has not moved at yet. And then deploying your team to go obviously wager on those lines, be that in person at kiosks, cash bookies, soft sports books, whatever.
And this is entirely pregame.
Yeah, and there is tons and tons and tons of that. And BetBash is kind of geared towards that. Like when you fill out the questionnaire for the speed networking, it's like, are you looking to get outs, which are accounts? Are you looking to give outs? Give accounts? Are you looking to get money down, place bets for people? Are you looking or need people to place bets for you? Are you looking to get money down for people where you will place them for them? And there wasn't a lot of other questions beyond that. So it's like that is the focus of, that system and that being the way that things operate. Now, there were definitely teams of live bettors. They are almost all doing pass post betting. So they know the result. They've got teams at the stadiums, and they are calling in what is happening in real time, and people are betting outside of the stadium. So teams that are doing that, and they've got people all over the country at stadiums.
Okay. So courtsiding and pass post.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of that happening. So I mean, guys like that, obviously you're going to get clipped just so fast. So they're always just looking for new team members to get money down for them. So just based on that whole system too, like you'd be naive to think that people aren't going there to fuck people over. And we did meet someone who said like they had met someone the previous year, and they said that their whole job is they have outs and accounts, and they get money down for you, and they just stole all the guy's money.
Jeez.
Right. And of course that exists.
Sure.
Like look at the industry and,
but that shady side really comes out.
Yeah. And I mean, that person has to disappear. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that is also a part of it. When you take a razor thin edge and then you take a team of people taking percentages of that edge, and then you add in the factor of, potentially people stealing money. Of course, these guys still net profit. It really is a lot, and it isn't attainable for, the masses. And that's where obviously, like, I think inplayLIVE and live betting in general just does have, a really, really appealing niche. And that niche certainly has its place in the industry. Are there other live betting teams doing things similar to us? Absolutely. But were we unique in the space? 100%. And Shane, you were just kind of mentioning like, showing people your spreadsheet at our event,
yeah.
or people asking to show their spreadsheet. That was a lot of what was happening at our booth at BetBash. Of us being like, yeah, like here's all our bets, and here's our spreadsheet, here are our ROIs per sport, and this is all of our wagers called on the live stream throughout the year. And for a lot of the pregame bettors, the ROI seems like totally unattainable. If you take like a 15% ROI blended across all sports, it's kind of fucking nuts, right? Anything in the double digits is insane.
Yeah. And
that is the edge of live betting and what we do. So you do have to have that data and information to back it up. And even with that, there's people that mistrusted it or didn't believe it. And there was people that said like, wait a minute, if everyone's betting this line, wouldn't it just make sense to come on the stream and wait as long as I can and then fade you? And I'm like, you can use our subscription for that if that's where you think the value is, because we moved a line so much. But at the same time, there are a lot of books that hold a line, right? That don't have it moving the way a book like Pinnacle or Bookmaker would have it moving, right? So, definitely a lot of that. Now, with all that out of the way, that's kind of more what we're doing in the industry. Certainly, we have a place for a reason, and you could definitely feel that at BetBash. There were people there that were learning. There were people there that were recreational bettors that were just there to have fun and party. And then there were people that were fiercely intelligent, like genius level intelligence. People that make, say, my love of football seem just minuscule and irrelevant because they literally know everything, like encyclopedia level information. And I love that because it just shows so much passion. And a lot of those guys are the guys that will be really successful with like pregame player props, pregame same game parlays that are correlated, those types of things. And meeting some of them and talking with them was really eye opening because I find if you are like expert or approaching expert level at anything, I like this line: the more you learn, the more you realize that you don't know everything. Like,
yeah,
like basically, the more you learn, the more you realize that you have to keep learning to even be at the level that you're currently at. So sometimes you'll have someone that knows nothing about a space that will act like an expert, but like a true expert will recognize that they know nothing in the grand scheme of what it is that they could know in their field. And what I mean by nothing is there's just so much more out there. So talking to people that knew things about players and schemes and information and, the list goes on and on, that was stuff that I don't even remotely understand. And that was really, really cool for me. That was like, holy smokes, like there are some fucking legit people out here. And even that was validating for me. And I think why that was validating for me was because I felt like inplayLIVE is such a attainable and swallowable. I can't even say the word. swallowable approach to betting, where you don't have to be some savant or absolute genius. Because if I were to toot my own horn a little bit, I do think that I do a reasonable job of, because I'm not that level of intelligence, saying things in terms that people can understand and grasp.
Right.
So yeah, I think that also was validating from the standpoint of being like, like this guy's so smart. He's so good at what he does. I can learn from him. I could be better because of him. But also, what he does isn't attainable for most people. He's too smart. He's a level of intelligence that he's a genius. He's a fucking genius. Right. So, and one of those guys actually was, one of the members on the team of Novig that will be on the podcast soon.
Okay.
So
we had their guy on, we had their CEO on, right? It was, that was Jacob Fortensky.
Yeah. And one of his partners is so bright.
Jacob was so bright, so I can only imagine the guys he's working with are super geniuses too.
Yeah. But I'm actually referencing as a bettor himself,
right?
And that's what's going to be really cool from when he does come on and we get to speak to him. So yeah, just all in all, really, really awesome, really eye opening, extremely validating, but also at the same time going like, hey, I can. There's no stopping in the learning on my end. Like I can keep continuing to learn and grow and be better myself. So yeah, tons of fun. And I think that from the standpoint of our event and BetBash, like it would be cool to do a bit of a 1-2 punch so that members of inplayLIVE are able to, like, cause Vegas is, west for people to come and then maybe roll right into inplayLIVE. But also at the same time, that's a lot. So yeah, we'll see. Great
to sort of hear where you kind of see it fitting in and what the perception is from other sharp sports bettors out there as they sort of, look at what we're doing. And I'm not surprised to hear that some of them maybe look at the spreadsheets or the data that you're providing them with, and they maybe doubt it because they've lived in a space for so long where they've found success, but that success has been with a 3 to 5% edge,
Right.
and
five
might be pushing it. Yeah. I'm being
Yeah.
generous there. Right. But, they've been living in a space where that's their edge and they've done it successfully. And then to hear that, hey, these guys are coming along and they're tripling, our edge, quadrupling our, the edge, they might find it hard to believe, but obviously you and I and everybody, most of the people in our community know that that's the case. But I would imagine that, yeah, some of these sharp sports bettors probably, don't believe it. And maybe they'll come around to it eventually, but it's also hard, when you're at a certain age and you've been doing something for so long and you got to end up sort of stuck in your ways, right?
Well, not necessarily. I think part of it too is separately of that is they do believe it, but they know that if you're wagering six figures on matches, it might not move. The 15% might not move the needle for them, right? Which again, I think is validating because you don't need some big, massive team to do this. You can do it yourself. And with 4-figure wagers, as you know, Shane, like 4-figure wager is quite a large one for you. That's you can really make great money, like great money. So that's definitely something that makes what we do obviously, quite attainable. You don't need these big groups or big teams and all that kind of stuff. But also, like I did, there's a total pro bettor, big time pregame guy, and I did mention, Kenny's unders hitting a 71% to him, and he said bullshit. And I said, well, I'll give you an example, right? And I brought up the example of the game that ended 6-0 last year. And I said, I don't know what the pregame line was. Sure. But I said, we might have got on that game at like 36.5, and we would have taken every key number all the way down. So like, that's an example of where we hit what we won on the game. The game was a winning game. So that's one game. No, but we may have had 4 to 6 unders on that particular game.
4 wagers, 5 wagers, easy.
Right. And like, I don't know that there was a game last year where we laddered down where we lost all of them. I know there was games we laddered down where we lost a couple of them, but hit a couple of them. Right. So, he called bullshit on that. And the reason why I brought that up is because those are events and games that you can get huge amounts of money down on. Main market NFL game, especially, at timeouts, you might be able to get 6 figures on one spin on Pinnacle or Bookmaker during a commercial break. There's definitely value and opportunity in what we do for some larger bettors as well. But again, you're probably going to be a lot more selective. You're probably not going to have, bets on all the wagers that are called on a stream. You may just be focusing on the NFL.
Yeah. I was sort of having this conversation with somebody that it's hard to tell somebody who's a sharp sports bettor because what we do, because in their paradigm, right, there's only a few sort of positions, right? And I think you kind of outlined it there in the networking section there, right? Where it's like, who are you, right? What are you looking for? And it's like, are you an originator? Are you a mover? Are you a top-down sports bettor, a bottom-up sports bettor? And it's like, I don't know how I would answer that if one of those guys asked me what kind of sports bettor I am or what column I fit into. I don't know. What did you tell them?
Well, I think that sometimes that verbiage is like, you have to remember that this verbiage was created from, a lot of these guys that are at BetBash or that founded BetBash, right? And like Shane, we have a lot of our own verbiage, some of which some of which might be really strange for some people to hear. And that was definitely eye-opening when I was there. There was some verbiage used that I had actually never heard before, but that's the case with meeting people all over the world. Like, people thought I was insane in the United States for saying, where's the washroom, right? They don't use that term when you go to a restroom or a bathroom,
right?
Right. And then, you go, the same thing for betting. There's going to be lingo that, it isn't almost even applicable to some of the things that we do at inplayLIVE.
Yeah.
Because it's like, do I follow other people's models and advice at inplayLIVE and then wager based on their advice? Yes. Do I do my own versions of that myself? Yes. Right. And is some of it neither, where it's actually just dealing with the game itself, but then using all of our wager history and data and instincts and knowledge of the sport and rules and motivations of the coaches that aren't necessarily modeled of 100%, right? So it's to answer black and white. I think there are so many things in this world that are asked in a black and white way or presented in a black and white way that almost make you put your back up, because there's perspective there that is lacking completely. There's actually a lot of studies that have been done on that, and politics are probably the number one area for that right now, where you don't feel like you can have a discussion and say like, well, I agree with this person on this, but not on these things, or, you know, whatever the case may be. Or I think I don't need to say that I agree or disagree. I actually have my own perspective on that. And not that BetBash is anything political at all, but you know, sometimes questions can be presented that way. And yeah, my answer is just going to be super fluid for pretty much everything, because that is the case. I would say the sport that we model the most would be hockey, because that's the sport that I would say will be, 20-ish% based on the game we're watching. And then the remaining 80% will be based on our models and historic data relating to that season, those coaches, and, you know, everything else that we do. So, yeah. So that I didn't answer your question at all.
No, that's okay then. I wasn't expecting a clear answer on that, because that's kind of what I was getting at, is there is no clear answer for what we do when it comes to that question, you know, and where it falls in. And so it's, you know, I guess it's something to kind of work through. And I guess, you know, attending things like BetBash, or even, you know, attending an IPL retreat, or attending any real networking event, you know, is that opportunity to have that exchange of knowledge and information, and you know, share verbiage that maybe aligns and maybe doesn't, you know, and to have those opportunities to learn and grow. And it's just totally. It's just a fantastic, you know, opportunity in any space, and this space is no different. So I'm looking forward to having some of the guests on, the people that you met at BetBash and the connections made there. For all of our audience out there, you guys can expect to hear some of those voices over the coming weeks and months, and you know, hopefully providing value to all of you out there in that way, as we sort of share more perspectives and more voices and that kind of thing in this space. But Pace, we covered a lot of ground today, so I think with that, to all the sports bettors betting around the world, till next week, keep beating those books.
Happy college football season, everyone. Let's go.
Here we go. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Behind the Lines. Remember to like, download, and subscribe. We are on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts. Have a betting story or want to be featured on our podcast? Drop a note in the comments below. And if you want to join in Play Live, use promo code Behind the Lines.